Now, 10 years ago when I got into physiotherapy, I got into it thinking that I would be financially set. And I remember when I got into my degree, it was a 5-year master's, about $120,000 of student debt. And I remember applying for my first job after I took a trip to Europe for 3 months with my friend and my brother at the time. When I say brother at the time, as in, back then, I was applying for jobs, and all of a sudden I got my first job offer at this clinic around the local area that I'm around. And I remember the job offer reading $30 an hour. And I think the biggest thing for me, because at the time I was running a strength and conditioning basketball business where I was charging $40 an hour. Each hour I was just doing outdoor workouts with basketball athletes, helping them get to state level. And I remember seeing this and saying, man, like, I'm actually taking a pay cut going into this full-time role as a physiotherapist. But at that time, not knowing what sunken cost fallacy was, I just kind of felt obliged to, okay, look, I spent all this amount of money, all this time into becoming a physiotherapist. I might as well use this, right? So I took the job, and at that time, I remember just being not really happy, in the sense of not being happy with how much I was getting paid, number one, the amount of hours that I had to work, which was till 8 p.m. every single night, and the fact that I had no control over my schedule. And I just started to find my work-life balance for things that I wanted to do just wasn't there. Right? Now, I remember at the time vividly that a friend of mine who recently got a job at Aldi gave me a message and said, hey, I got a new role at Aldi. I'm super stoked. I said, that's awesome, man. How much are you getting paid? And he said $30 an hour. And he was getting paid exactly what I was getting paid. I remember this vividly. And the first thing that came to my mind was that, like, man, this guy didn't have 5 years of study. He didn't have to put in $120,000 student debt. And he's doing $30 an hour. Like, what? This doesn't make sense. So long story short, 9 months out of uni, and 9 months into this job, I opened up my first private practice with a friend of mine who we went into partnership together. And it was just a small studio private practice in a gym, nothing too crazy. I was there 3 days a week, just trying to build it up on the side. Eventually my boss found out and I had to kind of go into that private practice full time because I had to leave my current practice. And I remember getting to that private practice thinking, man, this is it. I can have control of my schedule. I can start to charge more, which means I can earn more. And I was in a good spot. I was like, the reason why I started that traditional private practice for me was because that's how everyone did it, right? You kind of naturally transition from an employee to a private practice owner, and then from a private practice owner, scale into multiple clinics. So I started that with him. The first year we did about $30,000, I think $50,000. It wasn't much. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we were able to double our revenue and our profits year on year. Just as we got better, we understood business a bit more, and it got to the point where, and you probably feel this as well if you're a private practice owner watching this, it got to the point where it's almost like, okay, I've reached my full capacity, my business partner's reached full capacity, our staff has reached full capacity. How do we then scale? And obviously the idea with scaling then comes more staff, bigger equipment, bigger spaces, more overheads, and lower profit. And the profit margins in a traditional physiotherapy clinic in itself is already low. And I'm talking like 10 to 20%. Luckily for me, I was very tight with how I ran the finances, so I was able to get into like a 30% profit margins with my private practice, and I owned 2 of them, right, in the span of 10 years. Long story short, the first private practice that I had, I actually parted ways with my business partner just because, we started bumping heads and I had to start a completely new private practice, but brought on a whole team, right? A team of 7. And I ran that to the point where I tripled my profits and revenue straight away in the first year than I did with my first private practice. But then I ran into the same thing. It's like, more overheads, more staff for me to be able to scale. But the biggest thing for me was that, like, the more effort that I put in, I didn't really feel like I was getting enough out of it. And I was meeting a lot of people at the time where, people who were doing even just personal training and people who were doing things that didn't really require as much investment as us professionals have to do to become professionals, and they were making 2-3x more than we were, or than I was at the time. And I remember vividly, there was this one client that I treated who only had a very small following at TikTok at the time, who was a personal trainer. And he told me that he started on TikTok. He just, he did a uni degree, but he just wanted to really focus on fitness because that's what he loved. And in 12 months, this guy brought in $300,000. And I looked at him and I was like, on TikTok? And he said, yes. I'm like, how? And this whole thing flipped in my mind. I was like, there is something missing here. It's not skills. It's not expertise. I don't need any more of that. I've been this deep into the game. I don't need any more of that. There is something missing. And that one thing that was missing was leverage. And mind you, I've been on talks with practice owners who have 3, 4, 5 clinics who are doing X amount of $1 million a year. And honestly, I look at their lives and I told myself, I don't want that life. It's a stressful life. It's a lot of management, and you don't end up becoming the practitioner and the impact that you want to make in the world because you are literally just managing people. And I didn't get into this space to just manage people. And I see these people who are doing social media and making $300,000 a year with barely zero expenses and zero staff. And I'm like, what is this? And again, coming back to this whole idea of leverage. So I started diving into Naval Ravikant, understanding what leverage is. And I started to figure out there's something called old leverage and new leverage. Old leverage is capital and labor. This is leverage where it's permissioned and there's a cost of replication. So essentially what that means is that in this traditional physiotherapy clinic model, traditional private practice model, we're using old leverage. We need capital, which is money to scale. We need money to do things. And we also need permission. We need a permission from someone else to lend us the money. We need permission for staff to say yes to work for us, right? So you can probably see the leverage of the way that this moves is a lot slower. Now there's something called new leverage, which Naval Ravikant, if you guys don't know who he is, I would highly recommend looking into him. He had a tweet storm, a very famous tweet storm that you can look this up. And this is where I got a lot of this from. And this is what really helped me kind of open up my eyes to this whole hybrid practice in the online space, was something called new leverage. And what new leverage was just media. New leverage was just creating content, creating videos, creating one video that gets thousands of views every single day on autopilot, where the only effort that you need to put in is the one-time effort. And then from there it scales on its own, right? And this new leverage doesn't have cost of replication. What that means is that if you want to scale with a traditional private practice, there is cost of replication, overhead expenses, staff, physical location. When it comes to media, creating videos, right? If you want to create another video, there is no cost of replication. If you create one video and that gets 1,000 views every single time, there is no cost of replication. You put in your effort once and that scales by itself. Leverage. Secondly, it's permissionless. And what that means is that you don't need permission from anyone to scale. And that was the most freeing thing for me, right? In this world where, I don't know about you, but as a health professional, I was such a logical thinker. I just thought everything had to make sense. It had to be on paper, proof, data, evidence-based. But think about it. Does it logistically make sense for us as health professionals to study for 5 years, $120,000 of student debt, and get paid $30 an hour? The same amount of money that someone would get paid as a supermarket manager. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical, but we just do it because it's like this natural thing that everyone does, right? So once I understood new leverage, I started to understand this is what this personal trainer had. He had leverage. He had more leverage than I did, which essentially meant that the lever that he was pulling, he was getting 10x more, and I was only getting 2x. And it's the reason why everything felt so easy and felt so much more flow for him. So I started looking into, how can I then leverage social media? How can I leverage content? I started creating content on Instagram, Reels, TikTok. Didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I remember one day, the 20th video that I posted on TikTok, after just playing around with one of my employees, and we were just doing a stretch video for lats, right? Blew up, hit 10,000 views. And I was like, wow, okay, cool, this is nice. And then again, my next video hit 10,000 views. And I got to the point where I started creating videos, and these videos just started getting more and more views and a lot more traction. And what happened from there is that people started to know who I was, where I practiced. It was almost free marketing. People started coming in, booking in. I started getting super booked out. And I paid $0 for marketing. There was nothing I had to pay. No Google ads, no Facebook ads, nothing. I just had to create content that people wanted to see. And in the span of 6 months, I was able to grow to 250,000 followers. And I didn't know what the hell was happening, right? But then I realized that when I grew to 250,000 followers, I then understood what leverage was. I then understood that like the vehicle is the most important thing. And the vehicle that I was riding in before was old leverage, was capital and labor. And that's why I felt so slow and hard. But new leverage, which is social media, content, being able to go online and serve thousands at once with one video, that's leverage. Because right now as therapists, you're probably trading your time for money. As a practice owner, you're probably trading your time for money, right? And although you can create systems in the back end, X, Y, Z, yes, I understand that. But again, it's more expensive because you need staff to come and run the systems for you. In the online space, I'm now in a position where I'm with people who are doing $1.5 million a year with 80% profit margin, with 15 hours a week of work and only 3 staff, virtual assistant, plus or minus even a video editor. And then you have someone who's managing the client support, right? The community memberships, which I'll get into a bit later. But you can probably see how it's so much easier if you're in the right vehicle to make money and to be able to step back as a therapist and still make an impact. Because right now you're probably only serving one person at a time per 30 minutes. Every 30-minute slot that you have, you're helping one person. Now imagine you create a 30-minute YouTube video and then that YouTube video gets 100,000 views. That's 100,000 people, not views, 100,000 people. Look at it's not just numbers on the screen, there's people behind that. Now 100,000 people, I'm gonna say, that's a bigger impact that you can have on someone, on the world, right? Than having just one person coming in for that half an hour. And I started to see this more and more with my content. I started to reach people in Malaysia, Egypt, India, places where they didn't have healthcare access, and they were able to be educated with what I was doing with my content. And from there, I really started to get invested into how can I help these people more? How can I scale this to a point where I can provide healthcare and what I'm doing on a bigger scale? Long story short, after I grew to 250,000 followers, I then was able to make $250,000 online. And I didn't do that by myself. I invested into a mentor at the time because I had no idea what this online space looked like. Initially, when I got to 180,000 followers, I didn't really know how to monetize. I made $0, right? I didn't know what to do. But I started to understand marketing, sales, psychology, things that we should have learned as health professionals in the space of university and education, but we didn't, right? And it's an important thing, because we need to know how to sell health, because health is a valuable thing. And selling isn't slimy. Selling is all you're doing with selling is you're telling people, hey, I can help. And for people to know that you can help, they have to see that you can help, right? So once I made $250,000 in 6 months, and mind you, at that time, I actually fired every single person in my clinic. From a team of 7, I went down to a team of 2. Just myself and a chiropractor at the time as a subcontractor, and that was it. And I made more money than I ever did with systems and staff members in my traditional private practice. And that was the turning point for me and the switch for me to be like, I'm going all in. I want to be able to go to Japan, open up my laptop, still help people and impact people positively in their health and fitness, right? And be able to just work from anywhere in the world. Have more time with my wife. Have more time for the kids that I want in 12 months. Have more time for things that actually matter to me. And when I started to lean into that, everything changed. It was scary, but right now I'm in this position where every day I have late mornings that I don't wake up to any alarm. I have coffees wherever I want to in any cafe. I'm able to go home at any time and gym at any time. It's these small wins that you just appreciate so much more, because as a practice owner, a burnt out practice owner at that, you're super attached to a physical location, to one location. You only know the 4 walls that you're in. But in the online space, the world is your oyster. And sorry to be cringe, but the world truly is your oyster. And a lot of you might be watching this thinking, how is this possible? Is this even real? I thought the same thing. But the biggest thing that made it real for me was being in proximity with people who are already doing it. This is why I paid mentors. This is why right now I'm with a mentor, right? And it's this understanding that there is a new opportunity in front of you. There is a vehicle in front of you for all of you that you just have to say yes to. Attach yourself to that and go. And that's all you need to go from this burnt out mentality of physical and mental drain every single day to living a life that you fucking truly want to live and that excites you. And the way that I teach all my physios, my health professionals, my clinic owners who are in my mentorship to scale online is the easiest way to scale right now is through a coaching business, is through serving a younger version of yourself, right? Serving a younger version of yourself and using a one-to-many model. And again, another big mistake that I see with a lot of health professionals is they go into a one-to-one coaching model, which doesn't make sense. You're just still trading your time for money. Instead of getting burnt out in person, you're just gonna get burnt out online. The best way for you to scale is to have 2 days in clinic and then 3 days online, earning 6 figures a year with just 20 people paying you $125 a week. And the proximity model that I teach is essentially having curriculum that carries the load with serving one person and helping that one person go from point A to point B. If you want to learn more about what that model looks like, I've got a masterclass below that I'll link down in the description. You can feel free to have a watch. It's free. I go a bit deeper into what that looks like. But just to give you an idea of what this whole online space is and where you can start is just serving a younger version of yourself in a coaching model where you need 20 people paying you $125 a week and you're already making 6 figures a week. Sorry, 6 figures a year. Stack that on top of your 2-day-a-week clinic where you have people working under you. You are now doubling your revenue, doubling your profits, and you are halving the time that you are in clinic. And you are able to now live a life that allows you to work from home and purely just from your laptop or iPad. It's exciting shit. And I think the only way that you'll be able to really feel this is leaning into this curiosity and excitement that you might be feeling right now. So if you want to get started in building a hybrid practice and you really want to see what this looks like, all I want you to do is go into your client database right now. You have at least 1,000 people who know, like, and trust you already. Understand who you're serving. Who's the one person you can serve, getting them from point A to point B. And the easiest place to start with that is a younger version of yourself. Craft a compelling offer, an offer that they can't say no to. And I want you to hit send on that email to 1,000 people. Offer a heavily discounted promotional offer for the month. And I will guarantee you will have 5 people sign up with you in the next 3 weeks. And those 5 people will be the 5 new clients that you have that will model your curriculum. Your 12-week, 16-week, 24-month curriculum. not 24 months, it's a bit long. 12-month curriculum. And once you have a coaching business that has curriculum, coaching, and community, you stack all 3, you have an amazing business model online of proximity where you're only doing 2 hours of delivery a week and your clients are getting results from A to B, right? While your clinic is running on the back end with systems and staff. And I'm telling you, this new digital era is only going to get louder. How many health professionals and how many private practice owners do you see around you now trying to create content? Almost everyone. But the thing is, no one knows what they're doing. And there's a following count, and a following count does not mean dollars. And I can tell you that from personal experience. 180,000 followers, I made 0. It's only when I started to understand how to actually use this online space, looking at Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as a game, and rules of the game that I just had to learn to get better at. That's when everything unlocked for me. So, before I dive into this client meeting, it's getting quite hot in the car because there's no AC and it's raining outside. But if you want to learn more, I'll leave a couple of things in the description below for you. Otherwise, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for spending the time, and I'll see you in the next video. Much love always. Peace.